Hello and welcome to the third matchup in our World Cup of Slot, a special series of shows to debate the merits of our bracket challenge competitors that we drew at random. And now we've got the third match, which is MRSlotcar versus SCX, also known as Scalextric.
Yes. Interesting and initially apparently mismatched competition, this one, I would say. Which is, this is partly why this is interesting, isn't it? Because, let me speak on behalf of SCX, if I may, because I have quite a lot of them. So obviously, born, they share the gene pool of our beloved homegrown Scalextric, because that's kind of what it was, and then it became its own thing, and pretty quickly got better back in the 80s. I remember going to a certain shop where if you were deemed to be that all right sort of chap, you were invited into the back room where there were shelves of these miraculous Spanish Scalextric slot cars, which were all better than anything the UK branch were making at the time. That was before, I think, the SCX branding had sort of got sorted out. That's way back in mid-late 80s. So very much kind of home set. So, big in Spain, as you would imagine. So home sets, lots of people got them for Christmas. I kind of guess that to a typical middle-aged Spaniard, they have the same reaction to what we call SCX, what they call Scalextrics, as we have to our Scalextrics. It was something they grew up with, and it's very fond. And slot racing is huge in Spain, and I'm guessing it's a large part down to that company.
The smell of dust burning in an open can motor. Isn't it? Shouldn't it be?
Lovely. It is actually. That's a whole lot.
Is that carpet round the axles?
I wasn't even thinking of that nostalgic. But if we stick to today, I've said they're going through a bit of a lumpy ownership thing, but they seem to be back on course. Back with, I think, the original family being, if not in control, certainly involved. And pleasing the hell out of me, they're reissuing cars I loved from 10, 15 years ago, even better because they've got better motors, better running gear, great bodies.
Ooh, controversial.
Controversial. But we'll leave it at that. They're reissuing cars with different running gear. And the reason, we should say, the reason they've changed it is basically to allow for digital. So a lot of particularly the rally cars, had a shaft-driven four-wheel drive, and it's pretty difficult to put a chip in the front of the car when there's a spinning metal shaft going through it. So they've lost the four-wheel drive mostly, but it makes no difference, I think. But the models are lovely, and even the new models, most recent one I have is the Rally Puma. Very nice, very SCX, sort of accurate, nicely decorated, nicely finished, runs well. A little bit blunt round the edges. I mean, but it's it's a toy more than a shelf queen. It'll stand up to being bashed off the skirting boards a little bit, but still looks great and goes really well. And they make track, they make accessories, they make I think they've even. They've just reintroduced the rally service tent this year, which is a nice little thing. So you can probably guess where I think SCX are great. There you go. Over to you.
Fair enough. So, MRSlotcar, Mr. Slotcar on this podcast, Ernie Mazzetti is another one-man band. So the one-man bands have not done too well so far in this competition. Pioneer lost out to Slotted Polycar, and what are they called? Thunderslot lost out to Avant Slot so far. Ernie is a well-known and respected racer in North America. He decided to go the Maurizio Ferrari Slotted route and build his own stuff. He's done everything very much like Slotted, in that he started with a Group C with the Mazda 787, which is a much nicer model to my eye than the Slotted one. Controversial. And equally as quick. So trying it's a big move for somebody to try and take on Slotted in the Group C market, and I think Ernie did a stupendous job at it. He's now sort of mining the 90s GTs with varying amounts of success. The Jaguar XJ220 is a horror to look at. It probably goes very nicely, but it doesn't really look like you would want to remember an XJ220 looking, which was never the most attractive Jaguar. But
I'd say it's a fairly blunt, heavy-looking model of a blunt, heavy-looking car. So in that respect, I think it conveys the spirit of the original.
I like the new 911 GT1, and obviously he's now going toe-to-toe with RevoSlot, and Revo have got the advantage, if you want to call it that, of having a metal chassis which rattles everywhere it goes. So he can be rattle-free. But yeah, so would I buy an MRSlotcar or would I buy an SCX? I would probably buy an SCX.
Oh, interesting. I think they don't really compete in the sense that the models that they both make and the way they make the models are kind of diametrically, they're just different, aren't they? One are very fast, high performance, mostly sports cars, circuit cars. SCX are not necessarily huge performance, they're kind of reliable, mass-produced, nicely decorated rally cars. I mean, they do some GT cars and stuff as well. So, interesting that you didn't mention the Shadow from last year, which this time last year, the slot world was a buzz and a gog at the Shadow.
The Shadow isn't really relevant to me. I can't think of no. It's a pretty thing, but Can-Ams just leave me cold.
Okay, so this is getting to the final whistle here, and I sense there's not an upset coming.
No.
So, as you said, a bad day for the.
I share the nostalgia of many Spaniards for SCX. When we went on holiday, that was what I brought back from my holiday treat, was a Spanish Scalextric car, a Porsche 911, which was actually on Fuchs wheels, was a thing of beauty, and it went sideways everywhere, which is what I wanted. I could control it and drift it how I wanted because the motors were slow revving and nice. I don't think that changing to a Mabuchi or dropping shaft-driven four-wheel drive are big pluses for me, but they're still SCX and they're still nice things. And so, yeah, MRSlotcar, if I was looking for a high-performance car, he would certainly be on my agenda. But in terms of overall sort of brand value to the hobby and to me as a hobbyist, I've got to go with SCX.
There you go. That's another unanimous one. We haven't had it's going to be interesting. We haven't had a disagreement yet. I mean, I'm sure we won't get to the end of this without that. That's going to be interesting. But there we go. So a victory for SCX. Sorry, MRSlotcar. A good fight, but you need to make more rally cars. Basically, that's the takeaway from this one. So we'll add that to the results sheet, and then we'll move on to match 4, which consults my notes because there's a complication. Is going to be this is going to be interesting. It's SRC versus RevoSlot. So watch out for match 4.
It'll be a tough one.
See you soon.